It's super easy to ruin your credit score without even realizing it. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things that you must avoid at all costs that will ruin your credit score.
Destroy it.
But there's good news. It's easy to prevent too.
Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Philip.
And we teach you what you need to know about your personal finances using words you can understand without boring you to death.
Because adulting shouldn't suck. If you're new to our channel, hit that subscribe button and in the comments below, tell us what t-shirt you think Alex should wear on our next episode.
Why me?
Because you're always wearing black. All the time.
Get problem.
Duh.
In this video, you're going to learn why building your credit is one of the most important things you can do as a young adult, because you're going to need it for all kinds of stuff, like buying a car, buying a house. Sometimes your employer, whatever that dream job is you want, if it's a really good job, they're going to run a credit check. And if you have bad credit or no credit,
back to fast food for you.
The stupid mistakes that we made with money are the reasons why we make these videos. Because I don't want you to have to learn the hard way too.
I don't want you to learn the hard way either.
We don't want you to learn the hard way. When I was 19 years old, bought a nice truck, and I thought, probably should have some nice tires to match because it was lifted. Instead of street tires, I had to have some nice mud terrain tires. So I went down, bought some nice tires. The salesman was good, talked me into some new rims. $3,000 later, when I was in college, I couldn't afford to make $500 a month payments on it, so I just didn't pay it. And then I went to collections.
Collections is bad.
And it totally ruined my credit.
The number one worst thing you can do is make a late payment, or even worse, miss a payment.
It's bad.
Real bad. Payment history makes up 35% of your credit score.
That's a lot.
If you have like a 750, you miss a payment, you can automatically drop down to like a 650 just off of one missed payment. And that's going to stay on your credit for 7 years.
7 years of bad luck.
It's like breaking a mirror.
Except it's your credit. You're breaking your credit. Ah. This could literally disqualify you from buying your dream house. You may not be thinking about that right now, but 5 or 6 years from now you could be. And that single late payment might totally derail that dream later on in your life.
Ways to prevent that from happening. Auto pay. Set up to pay the minimum amount every single month. That way you're always paying on time. You should try to pay off your credit card in full, but if you can't, or if you forget, making the minimum payment is the important thing. Credit cards report late every 30 days. So let's say your payment's due on the 1st. If you pay it on the 2nd or the 3rd, that's typically okay. When you're more than 30 days late past that due date, that's when it's going to show up late on your credit history.
Number 2, maxing out your credit card. Your balance to limit ratio is 30% of your overall credit score. That means how much credit you have available versus how much you use. And if you use 100% of that, you look like you're high risk to the banks.
Also looks like you need that money.
Because you broke.
Shame. You're less likely to pay off a maxed out credit card. But this is easy to avoid. Keeping your balance below that 30% of your utilization rate is a sweet spot. So if you have a $1,000 limit, you want to keep your spending below $300 on that credit card. Ideally, 10% is where you want to be. That shows the banks that you're low risk and that you don't need that extra credit line or that extra income that you're asking for with the credit card.
If you have a larger purchase to make and you put it on your credit card, make sure you pay it off before it actually goes on your credit report. Sometimes that means you got to make multiple payments throughout the month. But the goal is, don't have that show up on your credit report as being a maxed out or close to being maxed out credit card, because you want to hit that 30% or less utilization rule of your balance to limit ratio. You should never use your credit card for things you can't actually afford, especially if it's like an emergency. For some reason, people think, oh, I have an emergency, I'll put it on my credit card. Wrong. You should have an emergency savings account and use that money to cover an emergency, not your credit card.
We actually have a video on that, and the link to that video is going to be in the descriptions below.
Food for thought. Having more than one credit card makes it easier to stay under that 30% utilization rule. So instead of just putting all that on one credit card, you can distribute that amount throughout multiple credit cards, and then it looks like you have less money. Even though you still spent the same amount of money, overall, you spread it out evenly throughout different cards.
Number 3, opening too many lines of credit too quickly. Applying for credit cards or auto loans all at the same time hit your credit as a hard inquiry. This is when banks use your social security number with your authorization to pull your credit. Every time your credit's pulled for these hard inquiries, it's going to lower your credit score by 3 to 5 points, and it's going to stay on your credit for 6 months to 2 years.
This is the part that confuses people, and I get it. I understand why. Because in order to have a good credit score, you got to have a mix of credit, which means you got to have multiple credit cards and auto loan and all that stuff, and you got to have length of history to build up a good credit score. But if you do it too fast, one, you're going to hurt credit, and two, you're going to look like you're cash poor, and you're going to be seen as a high risk to the banks because you're applying for all this credit right away instead of spacing it out over time.
Pro tip, have a plan. Opening up too many accounts too fast shows bad in your credit, and it's going to lower your credit score. Ultimately, you need to figure out what you want to do. If you want to build your credit, then you need to space out how many credit cards you apply for, how often. Same with buying a car.
Typically, if you space it out like one credit card every 6 to 8 months, you'll be fine. Double pro tip power!
Don't open up any new accounts for at least 6 months prior to applying for a car or a house loan.
Because that's when you need your credit score the most.
If you if you don't have any bet.
Do you have any bet? Because he doesn't have any bet.
Nope. Gave all the bet. If you don't have any large purchases in the near future, it would be a good time for you to do things that Paige said that I forgot that I'm supposed to be saying right now. I'm not saying this part.
All right. Okay, I'll
I'm done with it. You say it.
If you don't have any big
I was looking away.
If you don't have any big purchases in the near future, this would be a great time to apply for another credit card or ask for an increase in your credit limit because you might take a hit on the short term. If you don't have any big purchases in the near future, this is the perfect time to take a short-term hit by applying for another credit card or asking for a bigger credit increase, knowing that you're going to come out ahead long-term as long as you make your payments on time. I don't know what is up with this guy.
Okay.
Number 4, closing old lines of credit. This makes up 15% of your overall score. That means even if you have an old card, you need to keep it open. Don't close it down because that'll lower the average length of your credit history. So keep those old cards open. You don't necessarily have to use them. You can throw them in a safe. Just don't cancel them because that's going to lower the average length of your credit history. That.
The second word.
Yeah.
Number this many. No credit is bad credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's real stuff.
Not having any credit is bad.
These are the people that buy all of this stuff with debit cards and don't have any credit cards, or they pay everything with cash. They were given a car, they don't have a car, they ride a bicycle.
They pay their car off in cash.
They're like the Dave Ramseys of the world.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. You don't have any debt, but you also don't have any credit.
So that means banks aren't going to give you any money.
So when you need money to go buy a better car or actually go buy a house, you ain't going to get it.
Nope.
Because even though you're doing the right thing and you don't have any debt, you're not really doing the right thing by developing your credit and building it, so when you need it, you actually have it. If you don't have any credit, then you're just an unknown variable to banks. And if you want to go get some money, the banks aren't going to give you any because you literally don't have any credit history.
The system's backwards. The person with bad credit and maxed out credit cards still has a chance of getting loans from the banks.
Some bank.
It's just going to be at a really high interest rate. Whereas the person with no credit at all isn't going to get anything from the banks. They're going to get denied because they just don't have a credit history.
True story. When I worked at Chase Bank, there's a lady who wanted to get a commercial loan to start building some real estate, and she had moved here from China, and she had millions of dollars in the bank, but she had zero credit history, and guess what? Even though she had all that money, the banks wouldn't give her $1. They wouldn't finance anything because they had no idea if she was going to pay it back or not because she had no credit history.
It's crazy, right?
In summary.
Building credit as a young adult is one of the most important things you can do, and it can set you up for the rest of your life.
Boom.
Fa la 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 la. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe
And comment below.
and share with your friends because you need to know this stuff.